Good day, good day, good day, everybody. Welcome. This is Vince Russo, and I am about to play part two of my Paul McCartney conspiracy with the great Mike Williams of Sage of Quay. Did Paul McCartney indeed die in a car crash September 11th, 1966, only to be replaced by a replacement, a body double, so to speak, Billy Shears? We all know about Billy Shears, Sergeant Pepper. Guys, this is riveting to me. I have been following this story since I am a kid. Michael Williams is a genius. He has dedicated 3 years of his life to this. Mike doesn't have an ego. Mike doesn't have an agenda, bro. Mike is just presenting facts to a very interesting case. And I want to talk about that for a second, bro, before I start part two of the interview. Bro, you know, I've got a lot of mud slung my way after the first part of this interview. Vince, what are you talking about? Vince, you're gullible. Vince, you're a jackass. Vince, you're this. Vince, you're that. You know, guys, not for anything, bro. Open your mind. Because let me tell you something, bro. If you think that everything is the way it seems, you are out of your mind. How do I know, bro? Because I worked at the WWE. I knew what was really going on backstage. I knew certain things that have never made it to the public, bro. But what do you know? Oh, WWE, great wrestling company, Vince McMahon, genius promoter, yada, yada, yada. As my good friend Bruce Mitchell would say, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, bro, you got no idea. You got no idea. So, bro, this case of Paul McCartney, bro, this is 50 years strong. Okay, if something's going on for 50 years, I don't care what it is, it has to have legs. So here I am, here Mike is. We are just providing you with some information and facts. Quite frankly, bro, I don't give a horse's ass whether you agree with me or not. It is unimportant to me, bro. It doesn't matter, and I'm not going to sit here trying to convince you of anything, bro. I am convinced that something really wrong is going on here, but that's me, bro. If you don't, that's cool. But like I said, people, don't be freaking gullible. There are a lot going on in this world, bro, that we have no clue about. We are not privy to. We all live in our little safe bubble, and we want it to remain safe. We want Paul McCartney to remain, one of the four Beatles, to, the icon, the legend. We don't want anything to change that, bro. But there's always the what if. And that's all Mike is presenting here today. Before we bring Mike back, I want to give a shout out, bro, to those who join the Patreon program, bro. Guys, without you, we can't do this. We need your support. And I want to thank right now Chloe McLeod, Mark Martucci, bro, little Paisan action there. Wesley Landon Woolsey, a.k.a. Mr. Woos. I know all about Mr. Woos from Twitch. I see him all the time. And, of course, Robert Braverman, who I know has been following the brand for a long time. Thank you guys so much for supporting Jeff and I on Patreon. All right, everybody, without further ado, here is the great Mike Williams, and here is the second part of the interview. Is Paul McCartney dead? Enjoy, everybody. If they replace Paul McCartney, wouldn't you kind of want it to be like a thief in the night, so the Tavistock plan goes on accordingly? Why would you all of a sudden, there's a funeral, there's the old Beatles, there's the new Beatles, Paul's back. Why? What was the purpose behind putting the hits out there?
Yeah, I think, Vince, I'll give you my opinion on this. I believe there are two reasons. The first reason is because the Illuminati subscribe to free will, what they refer to as free agency. Billy tells us this in the book. So in other words, what that means is we're going to give you the truth. We're going to tell you the truth. Now it's up to you to use your God-given gift of intellect and reasoning to figure it out. Either you pursue the truth or you make a decision that you're not, that you're going to continue to be deceived. And those that are deceived and stay in that space, they refer to as profane. So the Illuminati subscribe to free will and free agency, which means they must receive our consent in order to move things forward. So consent can mean that you just ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, we told them they don't want to listen.
Right. I told you. And so all these clues in the songs are telling us Paul is dead. Paul is dead. Paul is dead. And people are just blowing right past it. I was guilty of it myself, you know? So that's the first thing. So in other words, those clues are about consent, that they can continue, that Billy can continue to plow along doing what he's doing because he has agreement from the masses to continue on as Paul McCartney. The second piece of it is a bit darker. I also believe that the reason why the clues are there is because it continues the ritual. It's a ritual. So every time you listen to a Beatles song and you have backmasking and you have clues and you're singing along and you're focused on that song, you are focusing your consciousness and your attention on the ritual. It's like, think of it as engaging in some kind of mantra or some kind of chant. George Harrison admitted to this in the song My Sweet Lord. At the end of it, he's singing about Krishna. And George said the reason why he did that was because people would sing along. And that singing along creates the magic. The magic we're talking about is Crowley called it magic with a K. That magic is not somebody pulling a rabbit out of a hat or, showing you a card trick. This magic is about manipulating reality. It's about manipulating consciousness and steering the mass consciousness in a certain direction in order to achieve goals and objectives. It's called their will. This is why Crowley called it do as thou wilt. And this is the basis of Thelema. And this comes from Crowley's book, The Book of the Law. And this is what the Illuminati subscribe to. And so the entire world is locked up in this, and they don't even know it. So when you go to a show or you're buying records and you're worshiping rock stars and entertainers and celebrities, what you're really doing is you're worshiping your gods. They are consider them the demigods, and you're worshiping them. You're giving them your money, right? Money is what they call money, currency. It's a current. It's like electricity. It goes from you to them. In order for you to make that money, you have to exert energy to go to work and make that money. And then what do? You then take your hard-earned money and you give it to them.
Yeah. Man, you know what's fascinating about that, Mike? When you lay it out that way, and again, listen, Mike.
It's the same thing with wrestling, Vince. It's the same thing.
Yeah, people are going to watch this show and say we're both nuts. I'm going to get back to logic again.
Okay.
Because what you just said, I never thought of, I never looked at. But here's my question while I'm reading this book. Bro, every single song has messages in it, bro. Obla di, obla da. Every song, bro. Every freaking song. Bro, not only that, Donovan.
Yes.
Wrote about it. The Rolling Stones wrote about it. Elton John and Bernie Taupin wrote about it. So I'm sitting here, I'm saying, wait a minute. Now I'm confused because this is supposed to be a secret, but yet they're all writing about it. And like I'm saying to myself, bro, you think it would come to a point where, okay, bro, enough. You know what I'm saying? Bro, there were death clues in Egypt Station.
Right.
So it has gone on from 1966 to today. And I think it's exactly what it is. It's the subliminal.
Yes.
It's the getting that message across over and over and over again, because why else would you do it?
Yeah, it's repetition. It's repetition, and it becomes part of your psyche. And don't forget the Who.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
The song Won't Get Fooled Again, Billy tells us, is a Paul is Dead song. The new boss, same as the old boss. The new Paul, same as the old Paul. That's how it's to be interpreted. And what they did with the Beatle lyrics is a lot of times they switched he and she to kind of camouflage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Remember, it's layered, right? So the first
yeah.
layer you're thinking he, she, but then they would just manipulate the he, she, he, and that's how they were layering the songs. And you're right. I mean, if you look at memoirs in the back of the book, I have it here. This unbelievable number of songs that uh, Billy takes us through in the book, and it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling. It's every song, man. Every song.
Yeah, every song. And the one thing I want to add, Vince, a lot of people who want to say that the book is fiction and all this stuff. One of the things that you have to understand is in order for those lyrics to be in the book, Tommy Harriet had to receive permission from those artists to put those songs and the lyrics in the book. So he had to receive permission from Paul McCartney, Billy. He had to receive permission from Biological Paul's, whoever's managing his estate, Elton John, the Rolling Stones, Donovan, The Who. So otherwise, he would be up to his eyeballs in lawsuits.
You
Okay.
know, and it's funny too, Mike, because like, I'm reading this book and I'm just like, bro, like they keep letting more and more people in on it. Bro, I knew about the Stones and the Who and Donovan and all that shit. I did not know about Elton John and Bernie Taupin. So like, as I'm reading this book, I'm like, why in God's name would you keep letting people in on this? Because somebody's going to spill the beans. But the fact of the matter is, bro, they're all at that level.
Yes.
Like, bro, if you spill the beans, there's going to be consequences.
Yes. Yes. That's right, Vince. So it's a big club, as George Carlin said, and we ain't in it. And so all of these guys are in the club, which means they all operate within that pyramid of power I spoke about. That's the thing. It's almost sad in a way, right? You have a lot of musicians and entertainers and people who want to be actors and actresses. And what they don't understand is it's a club. So all this stuff where they tell you, oh, you can make it big, you could be great, you could be this, you could be that. Well, you can, but you're going to have to sell a piece of your soul each step of the way. And the higher you want to climb up that ladder, the more of your soul is going to have to be sold. And many of these guys, when we talk about Denny Lane, we talk about Billy, we talk about Mick Jagger, we talk about Jimmy Page, all of these guys are like card carrying members of the pyramid of power, right? They did not obtain the opportunities that they received and the fame and fortune that they received because they just happened to have a lot of luck. Okay. Yes, they had to be very good at what they did, and there is a competition. They operate like a corporation. This is how the pyramid operates. Within a corporation, opportunities arise, and people within the corporation have to compete for those positions to get promoted and so on. Works the same way. I asked this to a very high-level Freemason. I said, I deducted that the Masonic structure operates like a corporation. Am I right or wrong? He says, you're correct. That's exactly how it works. So they do have to compete. But the thing is, as they secure these opportunities and they move up each step of the ladder, more and more power, more and more benefits, more fame and fortune and wealth comes their way. And that's how it works, and
The one question like I kept asking, and again, when you talk about, the more you talk about Billy, the more you talk about like the more I believe like this is almost like something out of this world. And because I'll tell you, one of the things, like as I'm reading this and I'm going through these pages, it's not that I'm going back and forth in believing. It's not that, but I'm going back and forth in my questions. I'll give you a perfect example, Mike. My heyday in wrestling was 1999. Wrestling at that point, it was called the Attitude Era. Bro, the world was watching wrestling. I was writing it. Okay. Huge boom period. To this day, Mike, I'm 58. People will ask me questions from 20 years ago. Vince,
yep.
why did you book this match? Why did you do this? And I'm like, bro, I can't remember. Like, honestly, I can't remember. So when I know I'm constantly being asked things from 20 years ago and I'm only 58 and bro, I can't remember. And then 2009, Okay, bro. So do the math. This original book was written when he was 72 years old. So that's what's blowing me away, because I'm saying, okay, bro, a 72-year-old man wrote this. How did he remember all that shit? Like, bro, every detail of every song and every line. And B, if he's making it up, this 72-year-old man has an extraordinary mind. Like, what is it, bro? I can't imagine I'm 58, bro. I can't imagine 70. You know who Vince McMahon is, right?
Yes.
Mike, Vince McMahon just turned 72. He's lost his marbles. Like, you look at the things he does now. He used to be a genius. I'll be honest with you, bro. At 72, he's an idiot savant. I mean, seriously, the guy's an idiot. So I'm saying to myself, okay, bro, either a 72-year-old is making this brilliant shit up, or he's got a memory that's photographic, or I don't know, did he keep a log? What's your opinion of that?
Okay, so I can answer this question, believe it or not. First of all, Billy is still fully functioning. You know, when I went to go see him in concert, his voice is shot, yes, but physically, his mobility on stage for a man that's going to be 82 in September was unbelievable. I have parents who are a year or two older than him, and I'm going to tell you right now, Vince, there is absolutely no way
Right,
they would last 4 minutes on that stage.
right,
Okay.
right.
And he's doing 2.5 hour shows. The concert tour, I think, is 39 dates within a year, and he's going to be 82 years old. So, so something's going on there. But I'm going to take you through something I stumbled on that I figured out based upon a correspondence that I had with the author Thomas Hugh Harriet. So I had a question for Tom, and occasionally I'll email him, and Tom and I have a good relationship these days. It's a professional relationship. He enjoys what I put out. I enjoy the books, and
So do you really know anything about him beyond the surface, or do you kind of keep it on the surface? Do you know about him?
I don't know anything about Tom in depth. I can tell you that he was a Mormon. He left the Mormon Church back in 2009. Of course, Mormonism was created by Freemasonry. He is a Freemason, and if I had to guess, he is either a 32nd or 33rd degree Mason. Tom did tell me that his ability to encode was a skill that was taught to him years ago. And at the time when he was taught it, he had no idea why. He just was taught how to do encoding. So remember, before I was telling you that when I say they, the deep state, Tavistock, the Masons, they strategize, years and decades ahead, right?
Right.
I mean, they're always planning ahead. So Tom was trained in this ability to be able to encode. So that's all I know about Tom, other than the fact that he has been extremely gracious whenever I've contacted him. He has signed non-disclosures, obviously, and confidentiality agreements in order to do the book. So he will write to me if I have questions. He will tell me what he can. He has been very open where he can be, but there's other times when he cannot talk about certain things. And I understand that, so I don't press him. Now, one of the questions I asked him had to do with I think it had to do with Phil Ackrell, going back, and this is going back about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And Tom wrote me back and he said, Mike, I have to go back to the boxes and take a look and go through the files and see what was sent to me on that. Okay, so we now know he was sent a bunch of information. He was sent boxes with files. So that tells me Billy's life is extremely well documented. And I don't believe it's just Billy writing about himself. I don't think it's Billy writing a diary. Because Billy is in this system, and Billy is blue blood. Billy goes back to William Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
William Wallace, for those who don't know, he's the character that Mel Gibson played in Braveheart.
Mm-hmm.
So he is of Scottish descent. He goes back to William Wallace. The 28 if on the Volkswagen had nothing to do with Paul McCartney's age would have been. It has to do with the generations separating Billy from William Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the point being, Vince, is that Billy's life has been documented from the very beginning, which means he was slotted and being groomed to be in a position of influence and power at some point down the line. He was brought along, he was tapped, he was identified at a very early age. When that happens within this system, and this is a system that people who are listening to the show are thinking, this guy Mike is absolutely out of his mind. Okay. I'm telling you, there's a whole other world out there that we're not privy to, that we do not operate in. There's two worlds. There's the world of for those that live outside the pyramid, and there's the world that exists for the people inside the pyramid. Billy's inside the pyramid. He's documented, Vince, up the wazoo. Okay. And like I said, it's not because he was writing a diary. He may have a diary. I'm sure he does, but it goes way beyond that. So when Tom was tapped to write this book, when he was selected to write this book, all this stuff was sent to him. And that it was Tom's job to take these files, which I'm sure were not just thrown to him like a bunch of receipts you go to the IRS with, right? These were very orderly, chronologically, I'm sure chronologically put together. And then Tom had the job of pulling it all together and then putting it into the book and encoding the book. 666 pages, 66 chapters, 66 footnotes. It's all occulted. So that is how that's how the book got written. Although I am told by Tom that Billy's not suffering from any kind of loss of memory, that he is still very focused on what he does. He's very focused on his business because McCartney is an enterprise. He's not just a guy that runs around writing songs. And I mean, that's what he does, but he's big, big business. He's an enterprise and he's still sharp as a tack. That's what I'm told by Tom.
Okay. Let's follow up a little bit because I want you to get into this a little bit, Mike, because this is where it's hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
Has Billy ever been? I've never seen an interview, and I'm sure he has been. There has definitely been. We talked about the height. You want to tell me about the 5 or 6 toes quickly?
Yeah. So I was doing an interview with Tina Foster, and Tina's another researcher. She does great work. And during our discussion, she happened to mention that she was clued in a while back that Billy, or a version, I don't want to say Billy, a version of McCartney, because it's not just Billy. There are other characters filling in and playing the part over the timeline. Billy's the primary replacement, but there have been others. Has 6 toes. So I wrote it down and I said, wow, okay. So I went and I did some research, and lo and behold, I find versions of McCartney with his shoes off, and he has 6 toes.
And you've put those pictures up on Sage of Quay. You can see the pictures for yourself.
You can see them for yourself. I blew them up. I even have numbers. You can count the toes. But here's the thing. And people say, well, so what? He has 6 toes. Well, the so what part of it is this. Biological Paul, and I have pictures of his feet also, he had 5 toes. So either along the way he grew a 6th toe, or there's another person, at least one other person,
right, playing
the part.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is a very, very key proof point as far as I'm concerned, Vince. The 5 toes versus the 6 toes. There's no way of getting around that one.
Mike, are you familiar with wrestling at all?
A little bit. Yeah.
Did you know a wrestler by the name of China?
Yes.
Okay, well, if you look at China earlier, I was very close with her, Mike. We were very, very good friends. But when she came in, she had like a very square, manly face. Okay, bro, they basically smashed her face and rebuilt it because she wanted more of a feminine look, because she had a jetting jaw and very masculine. And she sent me the pictures. I mean, she was wrapped like the mummy. I mean, she had her face broken and rebuilt. I mean, my God, bro, it is as clear as day. The younger Paul, the biological Paul, the round baby face, all of a sudden, bro, we got this long horse face. Has he ever been asked about cosmetic plastic surgery? Because I can't find anything where anybody has ever asked him that or he's addressed it.
Yeah, nobody will ask him that question because Billy, everything is vetted, Vince. He's been at a level for a very long time where, there's not going to be a lot of just people outside the inner circle that are going to get that close to him, especially to ask those types of questions. It's just not going to happen. In fact, I was trying to see if I would be able to meet him at the concert. Okay. I did actually put a feeler out to see if that would be possible. And the person that I contacted, and I'm not going to say who the person is, said, let me see, Mike, what we can do. He said, my initial take on it is that the answer is going to be no. He says, but we don't know with him sometimes because sometimes he'll make a decision that surprises us all. And so I ended up not seeing him. And I'm sure the reason for that was because I'm one of those people that are outside the inner circle. And I am one of those people that know that I shouldn't know because I'm outside the circle. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
it's like bringing an outsider into your home
Right.
and then trusting that outsider to toe the line. So what they're not going to do is they're not going to have a situation where something could jeopardize the deception. So that's why I'm convinced that's why I was told, no, you're not going to be able to go see him.
You know what? You know what I was. You know what I saw that was interesting to me, Mike. And I find this hard to believe he's slipping up. Because I mean, from everything you've said and the boxes of documentation that you, Harriet, received, there were two contradictions on a recent Stern interview from the book. And I'll tell you what those two contradictions were, because I just read the parts in the book today. Number one, obla di obla da. Stern said to him, man, I heard Lennon hated that song. And he said on the show, oh no, he liked it. And then he went on to tell the story that he's got in the book where he says, Lennon came in, sat at the piano, banged away that opening part. That was consistent. But in the book, he says Lennon hated the song.
Yeah.
And the second inconsistency, and this was a big one, man. The clips on YouTube where Stern asks him who broke up the Beatles. And he says John Lennon broke up the Beatles. I mean, it was John. In the book, he clearly states, I broke up the Beatles.
Yes.
And I found that interesting because, reading these details of every song in the documentation, it just seems like he would know these answers by heart. What do you, could that be the age factor?
I'm going to say, Vince, that I see Billy do this a lot. So what he does is he has two narratives. We have the one narrative that's in the memoirs of Billy Shears, and that's the narrative where he's telling you the truth. In fact, in the book, he even tells you that the version of the Beatles and Paul McCartney for public consumption is the fiction. And what I'm telling you here is the nonfiction. He even says that in the book, right? There's a sentence or two that explains that. So what he does is when he goes outside of the book, he continues to play the part of Paul McCartney, and he has different versions of these stories. There are times when he will overlap with something he said in the book, and then he just veers off, and it's different, like you just explained, right? You just illustrated. I believe that's intentional. I believe it's because Billy's take on this, it goes this way. Again, my opinion. You want to know about me? You want to know the truth? Read the book. If you're not going to read the book and you're going to continue to idolize a persona, a character, then I'm going to give you the fictional accounts of the character. And that's how I think. I believe he has two narratives and two threads that he rides. And
Yeah,
I mean,
Mike,
that's the best way I can explain it.
that would make perfect sense because I always go back to like, bro, like who's going to take off their shoes to walk across red hot pavement?
Nobody.
I mean, like that, what, bro? I mean, like seriously, like. Before we talk about that interview, here's the thing this is really a hard pill to swallow. And I want to get into this a little bit because, bro, thanks to you, I've become a big fan of this character, Vivian Stanshall. What a freak! But he would have been a great wrestler. What a personality! What like unbelievable! I've been watching a lot of Bonzo documentaries and them being on shows over there and stuff. What a oh my god! What a charismatic individual. Okay, Magical Mystery Tour. Bonzo's in the movie.
Right.
Magical Mystery Tour. Paul's in the movie. Now, I've heard you say this, Mike. This is where, like, you say there are other Vivian Stanshalls.
Yes.
Correct. So that would have been a imposter Vivian Stanshall for that movie.
No. So I'll let me explain. I'll give you my theory on this. So I was contacted about a year and a half ago, Vince, by somebody who was very credible. And they had explained to me, I'm going to give you a little backstory here, so I hope you have the time.
Oh, absolutely. Please.
Okay. This person explained to me that back in the 1990s, they were at a very high level party, soiree, whatever you want to call it. It consisted of people from the intelligence business, people from technology, the military industrial intelligence industries. And during that get together where they were having discussions, there was a couple of guys that were off to the side. This is how it was explained to me. And this person was there. This is a first person account. And they explained that when they made the swap, the Paul McCartney swap, when Paul died, they created two primary replacements. One being the performer, the musician. That's Billy.
Right.
There was another version that was not a musician, but an actor who was used for public consumption. So he would walk the streets. He might do interviews. He'd be photographed. Okay. The way I understand it and the way I put it together is, and I call that version Street Paul. That's the name that was given to me. Right. They said he was referred to as Street Paul. So Street Paul, he was way ahead as far as the reconstructive surgery and the transformation to look like Paul McCartney. Billy was still in process, but Tavistock and the team there didn't worry about it because they said, well, Billy's going to be recording songs, and everybody who's going to be in the recording studio, the engineers and the producers, know who he is. No big deal. They're in on the secret. So, but we have Street Paul, and he can run cover. So people are going to see this guy that looks very much like Street Paul. In fact, in memoirs, they tell us at the Melody Maker Awards on September 13th, 1966, where Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr are up on stage and they're receiving an award, that's not biological Paul. That was Tavistock's best double. That's Street Paul. It's a mind blower because I have the footage. When you watch it, it's just unbelievable what they did, how they were able to transform this guy to look exactly like biological Paul. So I believe what they did in Magical Mystery Tour was this. Scenes where we have close-ups and they're not performing, we are seeing Street Paul. Other scenes where there's a performance and the camera is further away, that's Billy in costume. The costume consisted of, they used a lot of latex, foam latex. Foam latex has been used extensively since The Wizard of Oz back in the 1930s. So by the time they got to 1966, it was 30 years of foam latex technology being used cosmetically for theater and movies and so on. A lot of people think like they invented latex last week. It's been in play for 90 years. Mm-hmm. So I believe in Magical Mystery Tour we are seeing two replacements. We're seeing Street Paul, and then we're seeing Billy when there's the performances, like when they're singing I am the walrus, that scene, I believe that to be Billy. Now,
Who's Vivian Stanshall?
okay, so Stanshall is Billy. So when Stanshall comes out in Magical Mystery Tour, that's what he looks like without all of the latex and all the cosmetics. So he made a cameo as himself, and then the rest of the time in the film, he was made up to look like Paul McCartney. And I believe, again, what they did was they played off of Street Paul and Billy, Street Paul and Billy. Because even when you look at Magical Mystery Tour, if you look at stills from the movie, if you look closely, you will see that the Paul McCartney in Magical Mystery Tour in different stills doesn't look exactly the same. They don't look the same. So
Because you're not looking for that.
you're not looking for it. See, what they did was, which was
Right.
brilliant, was
Right.
they put him in the context of the Beatles. So what happens with people psychologically in the mind? They say, that's Paul McCartney.
Right.
You have no reason to question it.
Right.
But once you start analyzing it, so Magical Mystery Tour, Billy's in it. He does a cameo as Vivian Stanshall, and he's also playing the McCartney character, but not in the close-ups. In the close-ups, that's Street Paul, because Street Paul, like I said, was more advanced in the transformation. In fact, I don't even want to say more advanced. They nailed it with him. He was all set. He was ready to go.
Now, Mike, here's where you blew me a little. Here's where you blew me away a little, because here's where you made me believe that you're in on this thing, Mike. You tell us about Vivian Stanshall, who allegedly passed away, but Vivian Stanshall did not pass away. The year of his passing is the year he killed the character.
That's correct? Right. Yep, he killed the character. Right. Well, no. Well, Vivian's.
Go ahead. Explain this.
Okay, so let me explain. So the reason why I set it up with the two primary replacements with Paul McCartney, the reason why I did that was because, and a lot of people will say, Mike, you know more about this. You must be, you're in the inner circle. You're an agent or whatever doing this stuff. No, I got contacted by somebody. Now, I do not discount the fact that this person who told me the story about the two primary Paul replacements was not somebody that was sent from the inner circle to me as a source in order to get me to understand how it worked. You see what I'm saying, Vince?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I put it together. I think I sent a version of that video, that presentation, which I put up in December of 2018. I sent it to Tom. I said, let me know what you think. He emailed me back and he said, I think you're going to like the new memoirs. Okay, so Memoirs was a pre-order on September 9th of 2018, but it didn't show up until after Christmas, right? There were delays in getting the book out. So I did not have the book when I sent Tom the presentation. When the book finally came out, the same exact template was used for Vivian Stanshall. 2 Vivian Stanshalls. There's one Vivian Stanshall who's Billy, who plays at the Bonzo Dog Band with Neil Innes. By the way, Neil Innes is the main protagonist of the parody Beatle band, the Ruddles. Mm-hmm. It's all tied together, okay? Monty Python, all of those guys, they're all kind of in on it. George Harrison was very connected into the Monty Python group.
Yeah.
So we've got Billy playing with the Bonzos, and what Billy did was he hired an actor/musician to play Vivian Stanshall. He hired this guy to be a lifetime actor. The reason why Billy did this was because the McCartney role was taking up a lot of time. And so he needed the McCartney character and the Stanshall character to coexist. So he hired this guy. This guy was on Billy's payroll. So this was the person, we'll call him Street Vivian or Street Viv. Yeah. This is the guy that was married to Quay Longfellow. This is the guy that had kids. And he had a dog by the name of Bones. I'll get into that in my next presentation a couple of months out. Think Skull and Bones, okay? So he put this guy in place. Then when Linda was diagnosed with cancer, Billy said, you know what? I'm just going to retire the character. That's what I'm going to do. So he approached the guy that was on his payroll, the actor playing the part of Vivian Stanshall when Billy wasn't with the Bonzos. And by the way, if you take a close look, folks, at those two Stanshalls, I'm doing a collage right now, Vince, just like I did with McCartney. You're going to see there are different versions of Vivian Stanshall. They don't look alike. So there are different characters playing the role. So he went to Street Viv and said, look, I'm packing it up. Memoirs tells us on page 84 that the guy playing the character said, no, I'm not giving it up. This is my life. I've invested my life into being this character, Vivian Stanshall. I like doing it. I'm not giving it up.
Just like Billy had invested his life into being Paul McCartney.
Right.
Kind of the same thing.
So this guy said to Billy, no, I'm not doing that, which took Billy by surprise. And then, this is what happened. You guys, people listening, can read into this, make your own decisions. He dies in an electrical fire at the age of 51 in 1995. I don't know how many people, I don't know anybody who ever died in an electrical fire. I know people do, but it's very odd that Billy approaches this guy and says, look, I'm packing the character up. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to retire the character. And this guy says, no, I'm not doing that. And then this guy disappears. Okay. I don't know. And people will say to me about this whole Stanshall piece in Memoirs being fiction. And I said, look, if it were a lie, if it were fiction, the Stanshall estate, he's got children, would sue Tom Harriet. They would sue him. Right?
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's no lawsuit. And the reason why is because, as Billy explains in the book, there were two of them. Billy and the actor he hired, the lifetime actor he hired that was on his payroll to play the part when Billy had to go run off and play McCartney. So you see the same template was used. Yeah. Performer, Billy McCartney, Street Paul. Then we have performer Stanshall with the Bonzos, Billy. And then we had Street Viv, who was an actor / musician, but not a musician like Billy was. You see, so the same template rolled out.
God, it blows your mind, Mike, because when you talk about how many instances is this being used in today that is right in front of our face? I'm a huge Rihanna mark. I mean, come on, man.
Right.
Like, I mean, how, you got to explain this to me, bro, because this freaked me out a little bit. The Vivian Stanshall messages on your recordings.
Yeah.
What do you, bro? Like that's what I thought. He's in on it, bro. Mike Williams is Vivian Stanshall. Bro, that literally freaked me out, bro. Like that literally freaked me out. What, please tell me how you did that.
It's a computerized voice.
Oh God, man. It was so freaking real. That gave me the heebie-jeebies, bro.
It's a software that I have. And what you have to do, Vince, is you have to just word things. You have to put the words together just right so it doesn't sound computerized.
Yeah.
And I've had so many people write me and say, that can't be him. He died. Right. And I'm laughing and I'm thinking to myself, it's not Vivian Stanshall, but, it's good for fun. I do it for laughs and to get a chuckle out of it.
You
but
freak me out. You didn't make me laugh. You freaked me out, Mike. Hey, Mike, let's turn this. This is where now, I told you a couple of the red flags, John just caving, but man, your explanation and your theory and your opinion of that, I buy it.
Yeah.
Vivian, Ackrell, I mean, bro, you have to have an open mind to believe all that. Bro. And again, I go back to the showman that Vivian Stanshall was.
Yeah.
This guy, guys, you got to see him. I mean, what's funny, Mike? I'm a huge Tiny Tim mark.
Okay.
Because Tiny Tim was so unique. That's why I like Vivian Stanshall. I mean, the same thing. But Mike, here's now where I start. Okay. I don't know if it's intentional or not. There are a couple of instances in this book, the more you get closer to the end, the more the real person, Billy Shears, starts to come out. And bro, I know, like, I started feeling emotional about it when, bro, and like, guys, let's look at this realistically. From the time Billy joined the band in 1966, bro, I don't think people realize the Beatles were done 3 years later. Yeah. So like, there was, whether either they didn't get along or, bro, they only had a 3-year run with Billy. But here's the first thing, Mike, where I started, my heart started opening up a little bit. He really starts talking about, and he doesn't hit you over the head with it. It's as he's telling the stories. They kind of start detesting him. Especially John Lennon, they start detesting him. They start making fun of him. With the obla di obla da, Desmond, calling him right. Desmond and Boogaloo and all this stuff. And like all of a sudden, bro, here's a guy. I mean, you guys got to really wrap your head around this and think about this. Okay, bro? Here's a guy, bro, that's being, as far as Paul, Ringo, and George are concerned, this is not Paul. This is not their friend. This is a guy, a guy that came into the group, took over the group, 1,000 times more motivated than biological Paul, telling them what to do, producing them. I mean, this guy, Billy, really took control of the operation. Okay, bro? From what I'm reading, Paul, Ringo, John never really got over Paul's death. They never really got over it. And with Billy being this perfectionist, that I'm going to bring the Beatles to a new level and kind of taking charge and being the guys and telling them what to do, the combination of them really missing Paul and starting to detest Billy because of his drive. As you're reading the book, bro, he's starting to feel more and more like an outsider.
Yeah.
Now, guys, you got to understand, like, think about this for a second. If this book, The Memoirs of Billy Shears, is correct, Billy Shears exists. So this was a man who gave up his entire life. Billy Shears no longer existed, bro. Gave up his entire life to become Paul McCartney. Now, bro, of course, he even talks about it. There's fame, there's fortune, there's money, there's the sexual prowess. He can get any girl he wants. He talks about all this, but he's also now talking about, I gave up my life. Not even arguably, I brought the Beatles to the next level. Me, I did that. I gave up my identity. I gave up my family. I gave up my life. And these guys are ridiculing me. These guys are making fun of me. These guys are detesting me. And bro, he makes it clear, and I believe him. The money, the wealth, the fame, the fortune, I don't think that meant absolutely anything to him. I think, bro, for Billy Shepherd, this was his dream job. I mean, bro, if you're going to give up your identity, this better be the dream job. But man, this was the first instance in the book, Mike, where I really started feeling for Billy Shears as a human being. I'm going to get to part 2 later, which was 10 times as worse. But this is where now you start, holy shit, like, this is a different guy. And this guy gave up an entire life, everything he had built before it, family, friends. And this is the treatment he's getting. And bro, of course, I'm brought to the scene in Let It Be.
Yeah.
Where Harrison, like, bro, I'll do whatever you want me. When you're reading this and you're looking at that scene, it's like, bro, this ain't the guy they started with in 1962.
No, that's a very telling scene in Let It Be.
So, Mike, did you just really? I felt Billy Billy coming out more and more as the book went on.
Yeah. So Billy, he makes no bones about it that he took the Beatles to a level that he believes, at least he believes, would never have achieved. They would never have achieved. He believes
Makes
the
no
Beatles.
bones about Mike. Makes no bones about it. He was better than than biological Paul. Makes no
Right.
bones. Says it numerous times.
Yes, more talented, uh, more of a skilled musician, and so on. He definitely says that. And the Beatles would have ended in 1966 if it wasn't for him taking the reins. Plain and simple. So what happened was, Vince, and you explained it great. I mean, the Beatles, before he showed up, basically they were four friends. Now they had a boss, and they had a guy that was a workaholic and a perfectionist. And in fact, in the book, he tells us that during the recording of Pepper, that he actually went back and redid tracks that the other Beatles had put down because he didn't like the way they played and he didn't like the way it sounded. So he says he was in that studio late at night, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., working on Pepper, day in and day out. I believe it was 9 months worth of time. And, if we think about all of the McCartney songs as a Beatle from 1967 through 1970 that people enjoy, that's Billy. And Billy drove them.
And keep in mind, Mike, I didn't even add this. Billy's not getting credit.
Right. That's right.
So, like, as the songwriter, musician, Billy is not getting credit for any of this.
That's why he's coming out now, because can you imagine going your whole life, the last 53 years, writing the music that he's written, and nobody knows who the hell Billy Shepherd or Billy Shears is. Nobody knows who that person is. Everybody thinks a dead guy wrote the music. Somebody who passed away 53 years ago wrote all that music from late 66 on. So now people are going to argue with me, and there are going to be people listening to this and say, well, he deserved it because he entered into this knowingly and it's been a deception. I understand that argument, but I also understand that in the world in which they operate in, I'm talking about Billy, the elites, the blue bloods, that's their world. That's how they operate. That's how the music and entertainment industry works. We can go and take a look at any number of actors and actresses who didn't use their real name. They had stage names that they kept. This happens all the time. So, I mean, I understand the argument both ways. I can sympathize with Billy on one hand, Vince, me personally, based upon the things that you said. I can also understand the position which says, but you know what, Bill? You didn't have to do this. And a piece of it, you did do it, and I would say probably a big piece of it, is because you wanted the fame, the fortune, and the money. And as time went on, as you got older, you sat back and then you started to reflect and you started to become more introspective about your life. Because when you're in your 30s and 40s and you're doing this stuff, you're thinking to yourself, you have your whole life ahead of you.
Yep.
You're living in the moment. You're making a lot of money. Like you said, you got the women, you got the fame and fortune. People are loving you. They're treating you like a god. And then, boom, you hit your 70s. Talk about Vince McMahon, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Bro, I'm that way at 58.
Yeah, you reach a point where now all of a sudden you become very reflective and you're looking back and you're thinking, nobody knows who I am.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah.
What's my tombstone going to be? Blank? And so that's why this is coming out now. So obviously, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but I mean, it has to work out this way. He received the green light to start to disclose who he is so that when he passes away, people will know that the person that was in the Beatles from 1966 on, late 66 on, and all through Wings and the solo career was Billy Shears or Billy Shepherd. So I think that that's something that the powers that be, they believe that they owe him. That's something that's in the contract that
because
he can disclose.
Can you imagine, Mike? Can you imagine like accomplishing what he accomplished for the last 50 plus years and not having a legacy as Billy? He's got no legacy.
No.
There's no, his legacy is a facade.
Right.
Mike, here's the part of the book, and this was like the last thing I read. Yeah, like I said, but I think I got 30 pages left. But this was the last thing I read. Now, I read this thing, and this was my conclusion from this. 3 things. Number one, either this whoever wrote this book is a absolutely complete asshole. That's number one. Number two, biological Paul is alive and well, and he is the one orchestrating this whole thing. Okay, this is biological Paul. He made this shit up himself so he could have a career well into his 80s. And me and you, Mike, would be here talking about it today. Okay, yeah. That's number two. Or number three, this book is 100% accurate, because you would have had to be an asshole to talk about it this way. You would have to be the real Paul McCartney to talk about it this way, or you would have to be Billy Shears. And here's the chapter that touched me the most. The chapter on Linda.
Yeah.
Because, bro, if you're talking about your love of this woman, in book form for the world to read, and just pouring out how you feel about this woman and, your soulmates and everything she meant to you. And like, you're making this shit up, like you're an absolute asshole. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you're Paul McCartney, biological Paul, you could be feeling that way about Linda, obviously. But if you're Billy Shears and Linda knew who you were, I love that story you told yesterday. Billy, guy's here to fix the guitar.
Right.
Okay, bro, then that part, I mean, man, that to me, Mike, the depthness of his love of Linda, that superseded any red flag I had. Because, bro, if you're making this up, you are one heartless SOB.
Yeah. No, it comes through in the book that he absolutely loved Linda and they were in love. It also comes through, Vince, that he loves his kids and his family. That's the other thing. And so, so I mean, look, you mentioned 3 options here. So I believe it's option number 3, obviously. First of all, the book is loaded up with too much detail for somebody to make it up. In other words, if you're going to make something up, you'd have to connect all the dots. And in the book, everything is connected.
Yeah.
It would be
Mike, this is like, seriously, guys, if you read this book, and I'm going to recommend it strongly, the only way I could put it, bro, is, the imagination, bro, you got to be Stephen King times a million to have this type of imagination. It's not believable at all, bro. That somebody literally could sit down and make up these 660. It's not believable.
No, it's not believable. And that's what I tell folks, Vince, when they say to me, well, I don't know if the book is true, it's fiction. I said, have you read it? I always get crickets with that, by the way. People who always say that. Yeah, they haven't read the book. I say, look, do yourself a favor. And it's not because I'm hawking the book. Like I said in the beginning of the show, I used the book because I stumbled upon it. And when I read it, I decided to use it as a springboard for my own research. That's it. I had a very difficult time disproving the book and debunking the book. I found that as I went into the research, I was validating it. So if you're really interested in this conspiracy, again, and it encompasses so many things, so many aspects of how our reality is being controlled, read it. Just pick it up and read it. I mean, what harm can it do? If you decide you don't like reading it or whatever, just, I guess just put the book down and go do something else. But if you really want to try to get a handle on what this is all about, take your time, read it. 666 pages. Yes, it's a big book, but you're not in a race. Take a couple of weeks, couple of months and read it.
All you have to say is, if Vince Russo can read this book, you can read this book. That's all. They'll understand that. I want to, Mike, we're going to wrap this up soon, because I swear I could talk to you for 8 hours. I mean, there's no question about it. I want to tie up some like little loose stuff around this story. First of all, and I had this question for you, man. You get granted to go backstage. Okay. What do you say? Tell me, Mike, you got 5 minutes. Bro, there's you and him in a room. 5 minutes. What do you say?
I've been asked that before. And I guess what I would say is, I would say, hello, William. It's a pleasure to meet you. And I read,
and hope he wouldn't say anything.
I would tell him, I read your biography. I very much enjoyed the memoirs of Billy Shears. You know,
Would you really say that, Mike? That would take a big set to say that, Mike.
yeah, I would say that because that's who he is. You see, that's the thing. That's who he is. A lot of times we're just afraid to confront
Yes.
what the truth is. You know, oh, I don't want to say that. I don't want to offend him. But the thing is, I know at this point that Billy wants people to know who he is. Now, on page 326 of the book, there's a footnote. And in that footnote, it says that Billy enjoys, let me just see if I can find it here for a second, Vince. Bear with me 1 second. So
Yeah,
page
no,
320.
I'm going to look while you look. 320. Would you believe I opened the book up to page 326?
Yeah, look at the footnote. So if you look at the footnote and you go to the second paragraph, it says some videos at www.jamespaulmccartney.com impressed William, but one troubled him when it said he hates Crowley. And so it goes on from there. Well, www.jamespaulmccartney is my URL. It's my domain.
Mm-hmm.
It points to my Paul is Dead YouTube channel.
Right.
So I had no idea this was going to be in the book. So Billy is watching my videos.
Mm.
So, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is not to pat myself on the back. It's to say that I wouldn't have a problem
He'll know who you are.
saying, hello, William.
He knows who you are.
Yeah. So he knows I know who he is, and he's watching my stuff. So maybe I am jumping to a conclusion here that wouldn't work, but I'm thinking, well, you know what? I think that we can have a conversation. I don't think it would be a very long conversation.
Right.
You know, but I think that he would acknowledge the fact that I have pieced the puzzle together to a large degree, and that's what Billy's all about. I mentioned earlier, Vince. He likes to put the puzzle out there.
He likes to play, bro. This wasn't my next question, but you're leading me to the next question. He likes to play. Look at the Letterman interview.
Yeah.
He's telling you that would be me. Like he's telling you that would be me. And a lot of people, Mike, are basically saying that Letterman is in it, as deeply as Paul is, Letterman's Illuminati. Otherwise, because, bro, if you and I are sitting next to him and he's answering it that way, we're just going to let that go.
Right.
I mean, that was all contrived.
Right.
I mean, that back and forth. And like I said, bro, he's telling you, yeah, bro, the pavement was red hot. So I took my shoes off and walked across it. Like, okay. And then when he says, for Letterman to go through that line of questioning and say, yeah, that would be me, and Letterman not respond.
Right. So Letterman asks, so they claim that there's a double. And Billy says, yeah, right. Well, that would be me.
Yeah.
Right. That's masterfully speaking. And so he's telling us. And so what's interesting about it is, the audience is laughing and chuckling and they're not getting it. But Letterman is a high-level Mason. Yeah. Okay. He is also. So you have two very high-level Freemasons sitting next to each other, masterfully speaking between the two of them and playing the audience. And there are going to be people that will understand exactly what's going on. Once you understand the technique, you can decode it. And but the vast majority of the people out there, Vince, the 99.9% of the folks sitting in the audience, maybe 100%, did not get it. And like you said, when Billy says on the Abbey Road cover that he kicked his sandals off because it was so hot, what he was telling us is, does that make sense to you? Does it make sense that I would kick my sandals off and walk across the street on a hot pavement barefooted? Does that make sense to you? Because if it makes sense to you, you're not using your brain.
Right.
You're not thinking. So what Billy's telling us is, think. The reason why I walked across the street that way is because I was supposed to walk across the street that way. It was part of the photo shoot. It was a clue. Yeah. You see, that's how it works. And it's amazing how people rationalize the irrational.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
see it all the time, Vince.
Yeah.
You know, people argue with me and all they want to do is just rationalize things. They don't want to critically think. They just want to explain it away because they want to remain in their little corner, in their belief
Safe.
system.
Safe. They want to be safe in their
They want to
bubble.
be safe. They want to live in their little box with the bow
Yeah.
slapped on top of it. And don't you dare tell them there's something outside the box. Do
Yeah.
not do that.
Yeah. Now, Mike, let's go real quick. I'm just going to tie up
Go
these
ahead.
loose ends, and then I'm going to hit you. You know, at the end, I got one, real specific question I want to ask you. Heather Mills, Billy Bush. She knows, right? This is what she's telling us without her telling us.
Yeah. Yeah. Heather knows. Absolutely. In fact, I have a clip where Billy showed up for a premiere of the concert for George.
Oh yeah, his wife. Yeah, George's wife.
George's wife says, "Hello, Billy," and
Yeah.
and who's standing right next to Billy? Well, it's Heather Mills. She was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And again, I got that email, you referred to it before, where the electrician went in to do some wiring in Billy's studio, and when the door, Linda called out, "Hey, Billy, the electrician's here to work in the studio." So within the inner circle, that's what they call him, Billy, Bill, William.
And then you got the Dana Carvey, which, like, what the frick
Yes.
was that? Like, out of nowhere.
Yes, that was a slip. I'm convinced that was a slip. I'm told that interview never went anywhere. That was an outtake, and that's what I was told. And obviously, it was leaked out there. And Dana Carvey says he met Paul McCartney, and then during the conversation, he calls him Billy.
Yeah,
that's his name. So if that's your name, that's what people are going to call you by. People call me Mike. They call you Vince.
yeah.
It's just the way it works.
Mike, I was really I knew about the Japan incident.
Yeah.
Okay, bro. Like, how did that get swept under? I mean, that's a big deal. Like, Mike, let me ask you this. If you had to hang your hat on one thing like that, bro, like, that's it. I mean, bro, reading the Japan story, I mean, it's like, bro, like, fingerprints don't freaking match up. Like,
Right.
I don't understand. Like, what else don't you understand? So, like, my question is, number one, like, what's that's it for you? And number two, how did this story not turn into a big deal?
Because it got buried. I mean, one of the big things for me was the 6 toes versus the 5 toes. I mean, that's a recent revelation from my perspective. But the 9 days in Japan. So just to give a little background, Billy was doing a tour with Wings. They were going to Japan, and they had to jump through a lot of hoops to get to Japan because he had a prior drug bust. And the Japanese at the time were very, very strict about having anybody come into their country with a criminal record. So they worked it out. And what Billy did was, like, very foolish. He admits in the book it was very foolish. He stuffed his bag full of weed, suitcase. He gets into the airport in Japan. They find it, and Billy winds up in the clink. And the Japanese authorities come to him and say, "Who are you?" "I'm Paul McCartney." "No, you're not." "We know you're not Paul McCartney because we have your fingerprints, buddy. We have fingerprints from Interpol going back to Germany because Biopol was arrested for some ridiculous incident back in Germany. But it was a minor infraction, but they took his fingerprints. So they have
1962. So this is 30 years prior.
Yeah. So they had biological pulse fingerprints. And so when Billy got arrested, they took his fingerprints. Japanese are looking at it and say, this is not the same guy. So he's sitting in jail. And as he tells it in memoirs, he's kind of sweating it out a little bit. And so the British government intelligence intervened. They got together with the Japanese government and said, yeah, you're going to have to help us out and let him go. And that's how Billy got out of jail in Japan. So what does that tell you? What does it tell you when, I mean, if you think of it from a very simple perspective, he's a singer, songwriter, musician. Why would British intelligence, why would the British government intervene to get him out of jail for bringing the dope that he brought into put in his suitcase? Why would they do anything about that? Well, it's because he's their puppy. He's their baby,
Yeah.
Right.
And there's also been DNA testing along those lines too, right, Mike?
Yeah. With Bettina Hubers, there was a paternity case that dragged out and dragged out and dragged out. They also did, in that case, they also did a a handwriting analysis that didn't match up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somehow that case, um, Billy was able to walk away from it. The way he walked away from it with the DNA was the mother was claiming the child was biological Paul's child, and she didn't realize, the mother didn't know that this wasn't the real Paul McCartney. So he had to submit DNA. And when he did, it didn't match. So she claimed they sent an imposter. Billy got off the hook by saying, see, she's claiming it's my kid. I'm Paul McCartney. The DNA doesn't match. I'm not the father. That's how he got off the hook.
Right. Right.
So she shacked up with somebody else. And as much as she wants to believe that that's my kid, it's somebody else's kid. It's not mine. And technically, he's right. It's biological Paul's kid.
Yeah. And he even talks about in that book, like, bro, you could have DNA tested me 100 times. They wouldn't have been my kids. It was the other guy.
Right. And he says in the book, I'm going to ride that reasoning out. Whenever somebody wants to do any kind of DNA, okay, fine. It's not going to match, which means I am not the father.
Right.
You're not going to prove I'm not Paul McCartney. I'm just going to prove that I'm not the father.
Right.
That's how he's angling this thing. And the handwriting, the signatures didn't match up. And that perplexed the German courts. They were like, well, what, how did that happen? Yeah. So I don't know how they got through that piece of it. I have to be honest. I guess they just kind of shrugged their shoulders, and then who knows, him being him, they probably gave him the benefit of the doubt, and there you go. Case closed. Everybody goes home.
Mike, I got two more questions left here.
Yeah.
Here's one. Because as you dig deeper and deeper in, more people start contacting you. You're still getting new information on a daily basis. Are there times, bro, where you are concerned about your well-being and doing this, or is it the complete opposite? Do you feel, Mike, that you were chosen to get this word and to get this story out?
Yeah, so I have to measure things, Vince. So I get information that comes in, and information that doesn't resonate with me, I won't do anything with, right? Because, you do have to have that concern that you don't really know who you're dealing with on the other end. So I'll give you an example. So going back about a year and a half, 2 years ago, somebody writes me and said, we have an entire dossier on Heather Mills. And we want to send it over to you. And I didn't respond. And it was a no thank you, basically, by not responding. Because I'm not interested in receiving a dossier on somebody, because there's only one way you got that dossier. And it means that you either got it from a place that you weren't supposed to get it from, or you're getting it from people that I don't want to deal with. I don't want to get involved in. So when people contact me, and something intrigues me or interests me, I have a dialogue with them. It's typically email. I ask them a bunch of other questions, because what you're looking to do is you want to see if their storyline and their logic stays together, right? I'm looking for if something starts to crack. If it starts to crack, goodbye. I have nothing else to do with those people. So I have to be very careful about and very prudent with what it is I decide to engage in. Now, do I worry about it? Not I really don't, not so much, because I know that Billy wants to get the word out, because Billy wrote the book. Okay, so I think this would be a lot different if I were doing this work and it was 1967, or if it was the 1970s. Then I would say that I probably should be spending my time doing something else, because it wouldn't be a safe place to be. I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
Right.
But now, because of the disclosure, and I am thoroughly convinced he is disclosing that, it's okay. Now, I can tell you the way it does work is that the people that are watching the shows and information coming my way, they sit back. Initially, they sit back and they watch and they listen, and they want to see how credible you are. They want to understand your presentation style. First of all, they want to see if you're professional. They want to see if you're going to be objective, if you're going to use, you know, you're going to be an intellectual about it from the standpoint of using reasoning and logicking through it. You're not going to be bombastic. You're not going to be come across like some kind of nut job, some kind of wacko. So these people are sitting there and they're watching. And I know this because I've had some of them come forth and say, I've been listening to your shows. And so I've decided that I feel comfortable now. I've decided to send you some information. So they're measuring also. Like I'm measuring from my end. They're doing the same thing. And to be honest with you, that's why, people have reached out to me are very good sources. This is where I think I probably benefit more than other researchers. I'm not going to say all researchers, but there's a lot of people doing this work. And over the 3 years, I've had some people come forth that are very credible people, very credible people. And I pledge to them that their identity will remain confidential. There is absolutely no way I'm going to give up anybody, because some of these people could wind up losing a job. I'll just put it that way, or getting a lot less work. I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying people are going to get killed. So I don't want anybody to misinterpret. But
Right.
what I'm saying is there are ways to torpedo somebody,
Right.
to pull the rug out from under them.
Right.
And the best way to do it is you get blacklisted and you get work taken away from you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the business, right?
Yeah.
Dries up, you're fucked. So, right. So you have to, you have to be very careful. I have to be very careful to make sure that I don't put anybody in that position, and I won't put anybody in that position.
Yeah. Mike, this has been tremendous, man. I swear, I love the work that you do, man. I'm on top of you. I go to Sage of Quay every day. I promote it. I tell people to go there. But listen, man, if you don't have an open mind, don't. But the reason I love you, Mike, and I'm a fan of yours is because, it's exactly what you said. People can look at Vince Russo, oh, that crazy Italian from New York. He's out of his mind. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You obviously have put a lot of work into this. You have thought this out. You are so intelligent. You present this in such a calming manner. There is no agenda to bring people one way or the other. It's here it is.
Yeah.
And man, Mike, I just got to tell you, man, you've done such a great job with this. I am such a fan of yours. I really, really hope I was good enough, Mike, where we could do this again.
Absolutely, Vince. Anytime. In fact, I was going to say you have an open invitation to come on my show. Maybe we could talk about your life in the wrestling world. And
Mike, there are so many similarities. You talk about Illuminati, we have to talk about Vince McMahon. There are so many, Mike, there are so many comparisons. I think it would, because the wrestling business is a work. It's a work. It's all a work. It's all built on a facade. There are so many things that come into play. I think that's what piques my interest about this. But I'm sorry it took me long, because you wanted me to read the book first, and I knew I'm not going to serve you justice unless I read this. So that's why I took a little while to read it and digest it. But man, Mike, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure, Vince. It's been one of the best interviews I've ever done. And like I said, come on my show and we'll talk about your side of the business, and we'll get people to awaken to the reality and how it really works.
Yeah. All right, Mike, I'm going to wrap up. Just don't go anywhere, because I want to personally thank you. But guys, that is it, man. I am telling you, I've been telling you guys about Sage of Quay forever. Check it out. Mike, what's the other website? Because I want to give the exact name about Paul. What's the name? Because I follow that one too. What's the name?
The best thing to do is to go to my hub website, sageofquay, QUAY.com. All of my links are there. It's a hub. So you can hit my Sage of Quay main channel, my Paul is Dead channel. I have a guitar channel where I do guitar repairs, believe it or not. You can hit all that stuff. You can hit my blog, Mixcloud, Spreaker. It's all there.
Yeah. Well, there it is, guys. The great, great Mike Williams. Guys, open your minds, open your eyes, bro, because, you may miss what's not only right in front of you, but what can affect us all in the big picture. I will see you guys right here next week. Okay, Mike, last question.
Yeah.
Billy passes away. What happens?
It's going to be a slow, methodical process of rolling out disclosure. So, what I've been told is that there are other projects underway. Some of them are major projects like documentaries. So, memoirs, look at Tom Harriet. Look at Tom Harriet as the project manager for the book part of the disclosure. And there are people who are working on other aspects, like I said, movies, disclosure, documentaries, and so on. And these will be rolled out. The one thing I can assure you is many people I know who do the research are hoping he gets arrested and all this stuff and he gets taken to court. I'm going to tell you right now, not going to happen. Never going to happen. Billy has been a good soldier, a stand-up guy for the pyramid of power. He has moved his way up into the ranks. He's into the illuminated degrees now, based upon how I've pieced this together. He's going out in style, Vince. He's getting a ticker tape parade. He's going to get accolades and a standing ovation. That's what's going to happen. And they're going to pave it. They're going to wrap this thing up so that people are going to have an appreciation for Billy Shears or Billy Shepherd. That's how this is how it's going to end. It's not going to.
So we will know. We will know.
The book says, Billy tells us, full disclosure will happen after he passes away. But between now and then, the disclosure process will continue with regard to more information coming out. There may be, I'm sure Tom may have another iteration of memoirs that might come out, another, like maybe a third edition at some point. And we're getting the clues. Like as an example, Billy has that video, "Who Cares?" from it's the song from his Egypt Station album, right? Filled with Illuminati symbolism, just loaded up with it. It's oozing with Illuminati symbolism. And at the end of that video, there is a picture of a newspaper, and it says, "Never a big fan of," and then there's a piece of paper where he writes, "Don't forget your umbrella," and he puts P. Well, when you read it horizontally, it says, "Not a big fan of P, Paul." So he's telling us he's not a big fan of biological Paul. That's what he's telling us. It's those types of clues that Billy's going to continue to put out. Now, some people don't like that, right? How dare he say he doesn't like biological Paul? Okay, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just telling you, if he were biological Paul, he wouldn't be writing, "I'm not a big fan of myself."
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's the disclosure process. So we're going to see more and more stuff like that. And we're seeing like Egypt Station is all about the Egyptian mysteries. It's all about mysticism and the occult and the esoteric. That's what that's all about. All kinds of clues on that album cover, as an example, you know. So that's what they're going to do, Vince. And only those that are really paying attention are going to get it. I told Mark Devlin, I don't need somebody to stand at a microphone and tell me that that guy is not biological Paul. I already know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm past that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not looking for that. You know, personally, and even people.
What personally though, Mike? What personally? One question would you want answered? All this 3 years of research, everything you've put into this. What's the one question that you would want answered?
The one question I would want answered is, what's the end game? In other words, Billy and the Beatles, along with the other bands, have introduced a Luciferian theology, philosophy into the culture and the society. I mean, it really full blown, starting in the 1960s. I mentioned earlier, overturning traditional values, Christianity, all that stuff, right? It's Luciferian. It's also, you can look at it as the cult of Dionysus. Look up the cult of Dionysus. You can see everything that represents the cult of Dionysus is happening today, right? Revelry. It's all of the androgyny. All of that stuff is all in, it's all wrapped around the cult of Dionysus. My question would be, how does this benefit humanity? you're doing all this. How does this benefit the world? I can understand it, but I can't actually piece it together. Like, where are you going with this?
Yeah.
What's the world going to look like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now?
Right.
Because we have seen unbelievable changes in our culture, in our society, Vince, going back. Like, you and I are close in age. I'm 60, you're 58, right? Think about when we were kids and how it worked with the family and all that stuff in school. It's not the same. Anybody who wants to tell me it's the same, you've been asleep. Okay. All of this drastic change, where is it going? I that's the part I struggle with. And if I had a question to ask Billy, all this work that you did is in support of this Luciferian mindset, of this Luciferian philosophy. So what does the world look like, Billy?
Yeah. But without a shadow of a doubt, you believe they know where it's going.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They know where it's going. I don't know how much, control we have over it. I tell people that, the reality is controlled to such a degree. Everything is manipulated. Everything is controlled, your movies, your media, your politics, your government, your military, your judicial system, your medicine, everything. They got their hands in everything. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's an octopus. It's full spectrum dominance. And so people live under the illusion that they're free because, after work, you can go get a couple of beers, or you can go shopping down at Old Navy or Walmart, So that's the question I would have for them. What are we looking at here? What does this mean for everybody?
Yeah.
Because all I'm seeing is a bunch of dysfunction. That's what I'm seeing. Chaos and dysfunction.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing people live in fear.
Yeah. Well,
and people
but
living in
chaos
scarcity.
and dysfunction could be the smokescreen for the big picture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of this chaos has been created.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Mike.
I don't have an answer to it. I have thoughts and stuff like that, but that's for another show.
Mike, in the words of the great John Lennon, how do you sleep at night, bro?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, folks, listen to that song and that John is telling us all about the Billy story.
Yeah.
In the song, How Do You Sleep?
Yeah, and also think about, bro, your friends from childhood, the band breaks up, we're all now gonna sling mud at we're all gonna sling mud at Paul, through song. I mean, that's just not logical.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.